You here quickly. Yes, we're live. Oh, good afternoon, everyone. It's a little bit earlier than usual. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a little bit earlier than usual. Live and Uncut is back after the Christmas break, and my guest this afternoon is Chris Smith from Chicago. Chris, welcome to my show.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem at all. We've got loads to talk about. It's all going to be all about out of Chicago, which is we're going to talk about the latter part of the show. I'm absolutely delighted you could join me because what you've created in out of Chicago, I am really passionately interested in about, as we spoke before the show. So that's another story in itself. Just before we start, I hope everyone's had a great Christmas. You've eaten loads, you've drunk loads, and now it's time to relax before the New Year's Eve hits us and we start again.
Exactly.
So anyway,
for sure.
Anyway, Chris, thanks for joining me. But first of all, let's start off as I always start my shows. What was your first recollection of a camera in your household as a kid?
All right. Well, you know what? You should really tell people ahead of time that I am not a professional photographer. Like I love photography and I do it and it's great, but that is not going to lead to me having this huge business in photography. But I will tell you my memories for sure. I have two. One, my dad had an SLR as a kid, and he took a lot of classes. And every once in a while, we'd be on vacation in Yellowstone. He'd be like, "Chris, set this up. Let me teach you about the rule of thirds and everything." And I'd be like, "All right, that's cool." And I remember like every vacation, I think the rule was I got to take one picture. You know, it was slide film. It was like I got one, and that was it. And as long as it was on a tripod and I wasn't messing with anything else, then I got to do the one picture. So he had, I think, an old Minolta, and it wasn't anything great, but that was a lot of fun. The other one I remember is my first camera back then. This isn't like actually a photography thing, but I had like an Incredible Hulk camera. It was great. It was like this big. It was green. It had the Incredible Hulk on it. You loaded the film in the back, and I love that thing, and I wish I still had it. My mom kept all my Star Wars figures and everything, but she threw away my Incredible Hulk camera, so what a bummer.
Yeah, exactly. What a bummer that is. That's an absolute tragic story.
I know. I could have had that up on my shelf. It would have been great. So
yeah,
those are the two I remember from being a kid.
There you go. Yeah. So did photography carry on for you as an interest, or were you like me, one for getting outdoors and getting involved with all the sport? And for you, it would have been baseball and football. For me, it would have been soccer and rugby, as you would say.
Yes, that's right. So I mean, I really wouldn't say that I had a photography passion, you know, when I was a kid. That was just, you know, taking a couple snapshots around the place. And so I never really got into it. I never took it in high school or anything like that, but it was always something that I wanted to do. Yeah. So wait, I got to tell my kid to get away. Hold on. I know we're live. Hold on. Parker, I'm doing a live show. I can't do it right now. Here, live show really fast.
There we go. It's good to have it. Now the question is, you're live. You are live, talking to the world. Just before you go away.
Yeah.
Did Father Christmas bring you everything that you asked for?
What did you want for Christmas? Candy canes? Yeah.
Candy canes, the boxes.
The boxes of candy canes, and he got them.
And you got the lot. That's lovely. That's super.
Hi, world. This is live. Say hi.
How is it the world?
Everyone's watching. Okay, now I need you guys to go because I'm doing the thing. Go. Go watch Star Wars. Have fun.
Isn't it great to get the kids involved? I love it when they appear.
All right. So sorry about that.
No, don't worry. This is live and uncut. It won't be edited.
Oh, you got to cut it later. Oh, no. This is no.
No, it's not edited. That's why it's called live and uncut.
I know. All right. Was there a question there?
So we were talking about what did you get up to at school? Were you basically a guy that got out and played the sports and photography was a backseat?
You know, I never even thought of photography as something that I did. It's just like today, you know, people take pictures with their iPhone. I mean, I took some family snapshots when I was a kid. It was never really a thing. But I remember in the back of my mind thinking, when I get some money, I would love to buy a camera. I would love to do what my dad does. But I just thought, you know, it's too much money, and I never really got into it. But I always thought in my mind, one of these days I'll do it. And eventually I did.
Yeah, eventually you did. So just a brief talk through, because I like to find out your background history. Talk us through your school life, and you became a teacher by the sound of things. So tell us a little bit how that developed through, Chris.
Sure. So, I mean, I originally in high school, I'm like, I'm good at math and science. I think I should be an engineer. So I went to the University of Michigan to be an engineer. And it didn't take too long for me to figure out that, like, the story I tell people is I realized in class that I was like the coolest kid of everyone in the room. And that had never, ever happened before. And I'm like, okay, this is a problem, that these are the people that I'm going to be working with the rest of my life. And so I decided I don't want to be an engineer, and I decided to take a lot of the credits I had in science and transfer them to do teaching instead. And so I teach physics. That's I've been doing that for 17 years now in the Chicago suburbs. I'm originally from Detroit, so I taught there for 5 years, and I've been in Chicago the last 12.
So Detroit, remind me, it's just a little short walk down the road, isn't it?
It's about 5 hours away. So. I mean, it's I met my wife in graduate school, and eventually I moved to Chicago to be with her.
That's lovely. So working in the schools now, teaching physics and photography still hasn't really sort of taken any interest at all.
You know, I remember one time in college or just after college getting together with my sister, and we were trying to form a band, and we're like, oh, we're gonna, I'm playing the guitar, she's yelling like she's a punk rocker. And I remember going out to our garage and trying to set up this great thing with my dad's camera, and we had like fog, and we had like all these, I don't know, it was like an old owl, and we were trying to make it really cool. And I was like, man, if I really knew what I was doing, we could make something cool. And, none of the pictures turned out. It was terrible. But at the time, I was like, man, if I knew what I was doing, this would be a whole lot more fun. And again, it was like, when I have more time and I have some more money to put into this, I mean, looking back, I really should have just gotten something and just went with it. But no, I mean, like, that happened, and that was about it. That was like one weekend, and I just had other things on my mind, I guess.
I can honestly say I think a lot of us have done that. We all say, yes, if I get a little bit more money, I'll get myself a camera, and then you do something else, and the idea of taking photographs just disappears, and then all of a sudden something in your life happens, and you've got a camera, and you, before you realize it, especially from my attitude, my point of view, it becomes all encompassing. It becomes a total passion. Has that time hit you with regards to photography now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it happened. Can I get into it when it happened? Is that allowed?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
All right. So I bought my first DSLR when my daughter was born. Well, you just met her. So she is going to be 7 in the next week. And so it was 7 years ago. I bought my first nice camera, and then I stayed home from work, actually took a paternity leave for a little while. And, she would be napping for 4 hours out of the day while I'm home. And I would just go online, and I learned everything I could about photography. And it's like you said, some people are like that, where it's like, once you get an idea in your mind that this is what you're going to do, you just put everything you have into it. And I just remember, like, I was huge into golf before, and Thomas Luther said the same thing, that he spent every waking minute. Okay, you too. Okay, perfect.
Me too.
So I just remember putting every waking moment into playing golf. But then as soon as I got into photography and my daughter was there was no way that I could keep doing that. The sun's actually shining here. There's no way that I could keep doing that. While I got to stay home with my daughter. And so I picked up a brand new hobby, and I just put everything into it, and it's been wonderful. I loved it. Yeah.
So with regards to learning photography, the majority of all your learning was done via the computer through YouTube and other such channels as that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's so many great places you can go, Creative Live or Kelby or lynda.com. I mean, you put all those together, and I mean, we'll talk more about this later. I think there's something special about being in person with people. You get so much more out of it. But if you're just trying to learn a couple of skills along the way, you can't go wrong. I mean, that's great.
No, very true. You're very true. It's a nice little segue you've done there, actually, talking about your photography now and how you get started. What would you say is your genre that you prefer the most?
Yeah, and I'm like anyone else, where it's like, oh, I'm going to try and take pictures of the kids. I think I'm going to be a family photographer. And you go through all these different things. Oh, I went and shot birds all weekend. That was a lot of fun. You try and find what you do. But for me, what happened is that, like, when I was staying home, or even later when both my wife and I were working, the only time I'd have to go shoot is at night once the kids are down in bed. And so my genre has turned out to be, and I've ended up loving it, is that I do night photography, but I'm not living in like Colorado or, out in the middle of nowhere. I'm not doing astrophotography. I live, 40 minutes from Chicago, so from downtown Chicago. So I can jump in the car and I'm in one of the world's greatest cities for photographing architecture, and I shoot it at night. So in the end, that's what it is. I'm doing night photography in the city, and that's what I love to do.
Yeah, it's lovely. I've got your Flickr site on the background here. We're going to go to it very shortly. Have a look at you. Some great shots here, and super work you've done.
Thanks.
What at this time now, where we've got ourselves into photography, and you've learned as much as you can on the and that's what is your camera gear at this time?
Sure.
Then, not now. Then.
I hear you. Yeah. So I started with Rebel XSI was the very first camera I had. And it's amazing how much you could do with that camera. And it didn't take me long to realize that it's more about the lenses than about the camera. So I got a couple of nicer lenses at the time. I wrote a blog post at one point where I tried to say, first I bought an 18-55 that came with it, I guess. And then I sold it and I got, this. And that blog post ended up, I'm really bad about this. I've probably owned 50 to 100 lenses in these 6 or 7 years, because I get it. I'm like, I love it. And then I sell it and I upgrade to something else, or I try something different. So, I go on eBay or I go on Craigslist and I'll sell them and I'll buy something else. And I always think it's funny because people are like, oh, I'm locked into this system. It's like, no, you could just go sell it all and buy something else. And
this is basically what we find now with photographers. They chop and change with their photography equipment, but at the same time, they're never really happy with what they've got. And they're always looking for a better lens or a better camera, because it thinks eventually it's going to lead to better photography. But as we all know, the better camera doesn't necessarily lead to that.
No, and I think it's bad when people get into, the sensors and worrying about pixel sizes and how much noise there is. But I think there's something too. I've never tried. I have now. I've never tried like using tilt shift lenses, or I've never shot with a fisheye lens. To put a lens like that on your camera, it opens up a whole new world. It opens up a whole new experience. So those things, I think they can bring out the creativity in you. So I think you absolutely should try those things.
Yeah. Always a digital shooter. Never used a film camera, or have used a camera. No.
Yeah, just my, the one picture a year with my dad.
That's the only time in the film. Okay.
That and the Incredible Hulk, but other than that, it's all digital. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. Let's then we'll talk later on when you changed over. Let's go to screen share.
All right.
All the photographs here of the people that are watching. We've got quite a few viewers here today, actually, Chris. So this is superb.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, it's this is great. So you should be seeing.
Hey guys.
There's a few more than that. I'll tell you, just your mum and dad. Yeah, for those that are watching here, just to explain, Chris suggested that we look at his Flickr page where he's got all these. Well, guys, look at this photography. Come on. He says he's an amateur photographer. This is worthy of a professional at any level, in my opinion. So anyway, what I'm going to do here is, as I always do, is I'll scroll through slowly. If there's a particular image that Chris wants to talk about, or I want to talk about, we'll stop and let's see if this works. We should be able to do a double click here.
If you can pick whatever you want, So
well, there we go. Let's look at this one. And New York.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Grand Central.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I mentioned this. My daughter's just come back from New York for a long weekend with her boyfriend. They had a fantastic time, and one of the places they wanted to go was to go to the Grand Central Station. Tell us about this one, Chris.
For sure. I mean, when you go up here to shoot this, you're going to be with 10, 15 other photographers at the same time. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think if you scroll down, I think it'll say that I was shooting with an XT10. That was yeah. So I borrowed that. Yeah, exactly, with the 10 to 24. Love that lens. That's one of the two that I have right now. But I borrowed that for the weekend. Actually, someone at our conference won it, and then he said, "You're going to New York? You want to borrow it?" So I borrowed it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and the reason I don't want to I should talk about the photography, but it always devolves into the reason I was in New York and I hadn't been there since I was in high school was that we're trying to plan this Out of New York conference. And so I wanted to go see the sites, see our venue in New York, and it's going to be in October. But we wanted to make sure that our venue was near Grand Central Terminal within walking distance, because this is a great place to shoot. I think the key to this picture, though, was the fact that it was a full sun coming in directly through those windows to create the shadows and the silhouettes.
Yeah, I quite agree with you. But the one thing that catches my eye about this photograph, and I love doing this with especially with street photography, is there where you got the blur, the movement of the people there in the front and the foreground, and you get this one central guy standing there with the saddlebag, the over the shoulder bag, which seems to catch your attention. But then you see all these people are moving,
Right?
and as you say, but you got that beautiful backlit coming through the windows there. That's a lovely shot.
I'll tell you the opposite advice. I could open up my Lightroom, but I'm not going to do it. But I'll give you the opposite advice of what Valerie Jardin would tell you, because she would tell you, you need to capture the moment. You're the photographer. You go down there and you get one shot. Well, I'll tell you that I took probably 300 shots of this when I got home, and that was the one that I thought turned out great.
You're not telling me that you cheated here by taking 300 shots, are you?
I don't think it's cheating. I think it's the way to do it. Your end goal is to get a great picture. So
couldn't agree more.
Sorry, Valerie.
These professional photographers, what do they know? What do they know?
Yeah.
It's okay. I know Valerie very, very well, so she'll appreciate the chuckle on that one. Yeah. Let's just go through a few more here before I find one to stop at. Oh, this is beautiful. This is beautiful.
Okay, so this is from the.
Tell me about this one.
This is from the Chicago Botanic Garden, and I was with my friend Melinda Kevsjanky. She helps me with Out of Chicago, and we were sitting on the other side of the pond waiting for the sun had just gone down, and she took, well, how long is this exposure? Maybe 10, 15 seconds? Can you see if you scroll down there?
It says 13 seconds.
13 seconds. So we were taking these long exposures because the sun had gone down and it was dark. And she like pushed her camera and then she tried to pick it back up. It was on a tripod, but knocked it over. And so she got about 3 seconds of 3 different images. So this was straight out of camera. She did that. I'm like, oh, I got to try something like that. So it's one shot, 13 seconds. After a few seconds, I moved it. Then I moved it again. So that's why you see the trees 3 times over. But that's straight out of camera. It was just kind of fun.
That's super. That is super. It's Canon EOS 6D 70-300.
Don't make me cry. I've sold that and that lens, but yes, very sad.
Lovely. That's a beautiful image. And that's straight out of camera. No work in the Lightroom.
Oh, I mean, there's probably some, but it's very close. Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely.
And believe me, I have no problem with working on pictures in post for sure.
No, me too. Me too. This is an interesting shot. This is looks like some kind of boat training session area.
That's exactly right. Yeah. This is a brand new building. It's designed by, oh my goodness, what's her name? Jeannie Gang. She's very famous now as one of the world's best female architects. And this is just recently built in Chicago, and it's called the HMS Boathouse. And we took a tour there. This was actually beforehand. I went with my friend Ann Belmont, and she's mostly known for her flower photography. But we went in. The place is great to shoot from the outside, but we went inside too. And they're like, "Yeah, take whatever photos you want." I don't know if that guy really appreciated it, but yeah, I shot this I think with the 17 tilt shift possibly. Well, at least one of them I did, but whatever. Well, yeah. So the 17 tilt shift, and he's almost like one of those infinity pools or whatever, but it's like an infinity rowing pool, I guess you'd say. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Very cool architecture inside of there.
Yeah. Let's just go back to the photo
stream. I think Flickr's changed how they do that. Yeah, back to photo stream is. I just figured that out this morning.
Yeah, here we go. So we got some light work here.
Yeah, I don't know.
This is a lovely shot here. This one, I love this one. Chicago Jailbreak. I like the title. Brilliant title.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so there's, if you can see in the background, the silhouettes there, this thing, it's called the Agora statue. There's probably 100 statues, and maybe in a different picture you can see a better view of it, but these statues, they're headless, and they're probably all about 10 feet tall. And so we were there shooting at night, and it was really cool. And as we were leaving, we found, I think this was leading down into the tunnels under the city, but with this fence here. And you know, the idea is just try and set up something different, you know, put something different in your foreground. And that was the idea there.
Where would you say you get your ideas from, the angles? You've obviously been very fortunate now to listen to a number of the guys talking at events. Where would you say you get your inspiration from in terms of your photography?
Am I answering my final questions now? Is that
No, this is just a passing comment. We're going to come to that one at the end.
Okay,
Just
good.
the photographic inspiration.
Absolutely. I mean, I do follow a lot of people on 500px and on Flickr and all of that. But as far as the angles, if you're talking specifically about the angles, I really try and see every scene in like 3 dimensions. And I just ask myself, where could I put myself? You know, you see too many people that just have their tripod, if they're on a tripod, or even if they're just shooting, you know, straight away. Too many people always standing at eye level and just looking straight ahead. And I will put my camera away and I will just look at the whole area around me, and I'll just ask myself, where could I put my camera? And sometimes like this one, like I just kind of like went down behind where this tunnel was, and I just got down low and I just looked and said, well, that looks kind of cool. And then I put my camera there. So just try and figure out where you can put yourself. There's only a couple of ways to change your composition. It's like what angle you're going to face your camera and where are you going to be. So really think about where you are going to stand or put your camera.
That's very good advice. You mentioned before when we were talking about fisheye lens, and obviously just doing some bit of filtration here in Photoshop.
Yes, yeah. So this one is from Open House Chicago, which is, and I think they do an Open House London. Is that right? Have you ever done that, Paul?
Yeah, I haven't done it, but they do a similar thing. Yeah.
Yeah, Chicago is supposed to be, and is from everything I can tell, is supposed to be the best one in the world. And they do a great job of opening up all these buildings. So getting inside the House of Blues, this was really cool, and shooting the stage. And yeah, I mean, I don't mind, like I said before, any post-processing. So this was taken with a fisheye lens. I probably did some HDR. And then the main effect here is that this is that topaz glow that I'm playing with. So I do like that. I don't know. Some people be like, yeah, you shouldn't do that, but whatever. I like it.
No, it's you're creating art. It's up to you how you actually set your composition up and your final print. This is obviously another fisheye lens shot inside the theater.
Yes, yeah, I think that is. I can't remember the name of it. It was in Joliet. Oh, it says right there, the Rialto Theater.
Rialto Theater in Joliet. How do you pronounce that? Joliet.
I pronounce it Joliet. I don't know. Yeah.
Joliet. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that's
nice
where
abstract shot here of it.
Or at least that's where they were in jail, right? From the Blues Club.
Yeah. It's a nice abstract shot there of the spiral staircase.
Yeah.
Let's, what I do is go back to the thing and scroll right down. Let's look at some work earlier.
That last one reminds me of someone that I follow for inspiration that I forgot about, and I'll give you a link, but he goes by just like The Shadow, or Shadow in like an Apple sign on Flickr, and I'll send you his link. But that type of shot with the staircase there, he shoots those, and they're fantastic, and I just love them. So I'll send you a link so people.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that. Yeah.
So that definitely is one where it's like, ooh, I'd like to try and make a shot like he does, and
exactly. Yeah.
There. These are all from the Iowa State Fair. My best buddy lives in Iowa. He lives in Des Moines, so we go to the Iowa State Fair every year. I went on Valerie's workshop. I go to her classes, and other people. I try and do street photography. I don't know, it scares me. It's really not my thing, but every once in a while. And actually the one right there where the guy, and you got a shadow on the right-hand side next to the one. Yeah. So Marie Lane Yo, she took me out. She goes, oh, let's go do some street photography. And that was the only picture I ended up liking. She goes, it's great. It's like a monster. I love it. And I think he was trying to fix the headphones. But
and Marie knows Chicago very well because, as we know, she lived out there for a little while, didn't she?
She did. That's right, and she's got some great shots here. But yeah, so she'll be coming back again this year for our conference as well. So we try and bring her back every year because she can show everyone where to go, and everyone loves her. So
yeah, she's very, very good photographer, street photographer. I always look at her work.
She's fine.
She's. I didn't say that.
No, I did say that. Yeah, I hope she's listening. Hi, Marie. You're fine. Yeah.
Great work there to share. Thank you so much for letting us get onto the Flickr there. Super work. For someone that doesn't pertain or suggest that they're a professional photographer.
Thank you.
Let's talk about Out of Chicago. That's the, as I said to you, one of the main reasons why I invited you on the show, because this is an event which is, how long's it been going now, Chris?
So this summer will just be the 3rd year. And every year it's gotten bigger.
Exactly. But in 3 years, it has really caught the imagination. I'm obviously very fortunate. I've got so many good friends that I speak to through the Arcanum and obviously in my show as well, which are out in the States. And we come around to that time of the year and it's Chicago's on, Out of Chicago's on. It really is gaining pace. Let me ask you, who came up with the idea?
Who came up with the idea of Out of Chicago? I guess I did. I don't know. Yeah.
Good for you.
I mean, we started the Out of Chicago website in 2011, and it was like, I'm going to do a blog. And I don't think I've ever said this anywhere, and maybe I shouldn't, but I think the name actually somehow in my brain at the time came about from, I love stuck in customs, but I'm not going to be going through customs. I'm staying in Chicago. So what can I do that's kind of like stuck in customs, and it's Out of Chicago? So I think that's, don't tell anyone that, but I think that may originally have been some of the genesis to the name. But yeah, I mean, we've been doing some tours and we've been doing some workshops, and it was, I mean, people came, but it was no big deal. And then I decided, let's do something where we all just got together. I'll get 10, 15 of my friends in Chicago. And then I talked with Skip Cohen. I don't know if you know him. And he was Rangefinder magazine. He ran WPPI and all of that. But I went to like Skip summer school where he was doing portrait photography here in Chicago. And I asked, you've done all these conferences, would you help me? And he helped me for just an hour on the phone. And then he said, I'll get Panasonic involved. I'll get some other people involved. And all of a sudden people are like, yeah, we'll sponsor photographers and send them in. And everything just started to snowball from there. So yeah, I mean, that's like the big story.
So that's how he got started. And then basically let's for those that don't know, let's talk about the actual setup of the show and what the unique selling point of the show is. What's the basis of what you want to create with the event? Because it's a 3-day event, isn't it? Or a 1-day event?
So it started as 1 day. Last year we did 2 days with 1 day beforehand with pre-con workshops where you could go with, last year's like Thomas Luthard, and you could go with him the entire day and he would teach you everything and you'd shoot with him. That was like all day Friday, and all of our Friday workshops all sold out. So we said, let's do Thursday, and all the instructors said, yeah, let's do it. So it was actually 4 days last year, 2 days of the real conference, but 4 days total when you count the pre-conference workshops. And so this year we just decided we're going to start with 4 days right off the bat, and it's Thursday, Friday pre-conference, and Saturday, Sunday the regular conference. Yeah, so on Thursday and Friday you can do those all-day workshops and you'll learn, and then you can go out and shoot. Or some people like Jimmy McIntyre, he does HDR, and he does what does he call it? Like he does luminosity masks is what he does to do HDR now. He'll be teaching that in class all day, but most people are teaching you what they do and then going out on the street to shoot. And that's Thursday, Friday. Now on Friday night, Rick Salmon is giving the keynote address, and after that everyone's going out to shoot all the great locations in Chicago. And then on Saturday, Sunday, you choose. There's 5 sessions throughout the day, and you choose, do you want to do a class, like you could have a class with Valerie, or later in the day she'll offer a photo walk. So you say, okay, so when you sign up, you don't just buy a ticket. It's kind of involved. You actually have to go in and say, session 1, I want Valerie. Session 2, I want to be in this class. Session 3, I want to do a photo walk. So you can choose between photo walks or classes for every session. So I think what you call it, the unique selling point. I think the unique selling point is that not only are you learning from these people, but then you get to go out onto the streets of Chicago. It's right in the heart of Chicago. Most things around here, they're done out in the suburbs or whatever. It's much cheaper for a venue, but we're right in the heart of Chicago, and then you go on, you're in walking distance. All the best places to shoot in Chicago. I should say that too, as part of my history, was that we did. I'm good at talking and
carry on. I ask the questions. I lead the horses to the water and they drink profusely.
All right, well, I'm drinking. So the other thing that kind of got this going was that in 2013 I wrote an ebook, and it was The Photographer's Guide to Chicago. So it's the 100 best places to shoot in the city of Chicago, and that was a big hit, and that kind of is the basis for the places that we go and shoot then in Chicago.
That's lovely. So let's see. So basically, talking about last year, because that's the one that is fresh in my mind. How many photographers, professional photographers, and presenters did you have at the event?
So I think last year we had 25, and this year we're going to have 36. So we're growing for sure.
36 photographers giving all their presentations at a given time of the day, and also doing their workshops.
That's right. Yep.
That's amazing. And I call them delegates. You call them attendees.
The delegates. That sounds so official.
Delegates. That's the official line that we say in the UK. The delegates.
Yeah.
Sounds good, doesn't it? How many delegates did you have last year?
Last year we had 300, and this year we are opening registration on January 5th, but we already have almost 200 tickets sold through the pre-sale. So
wow.
Yeah. But we're going to cap it. We don't want it to be a huge thing. It's going to get capped at like 350 people this year.
Yeah, I suppose to a degree you've got to be mindful of the number of attendees that you have at the show, because as you say, you could go vastly too big on this, and you'll lose basically the essence of the event.
That's what it's all about, is that not only are you learning, like I went to Photoshop World for the first time this last year, and I absolutely loved it. But when I was in a room with the teachers, that was more people in one room than we have in our entire conference. So I wanted to ask a question afterward, and there was a line of 30 people to ask a question, and you just turn around and you walk to your next session. Whereas in ours, you get to ask questions, and the people are around, and everyone that we have, they're great people. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think this is something which I noticed. We've got a particular a photo event which takes place in Birmingham, which is in March. And this is one of the things I've noticed is getting to a stage now where you have these huge presentations, which is great to listen to these very famous people talking about their work. But of course, when it comes to the time at the end of the day where you want to ask something of your own, you can't get a word in edgeways. You're really struggling to get even a chance of saying hi, nice to meet you. Never alone about what's your favorite camera, what's your favorite lens. That sort of work with the question which a lot of amateur photographers want to know.
Right.
So
when we do our pre-conference workshops, I mean, you're in a group of 10, 12 people maybe, and that's all day. So you're getting all the time you want to ask your questions for sure.
Yeah, so these satellite events which take place, I call them satellite events, where the guys go out and do that. Are you mindful of the fact that maybe, for argument's sake, one guy's only going to pick up, say, five delegates to go along? Would that presentation still go ahead, or would you cut it and move on to another one?
Yeah, you're saying if someone doesn't sign up, if we don't get enough sign up.
Say for argument's sake, you've got a particular guy's going to give a presentation on street photography, for argument's sake, and there's not a great following to it. Would you actually cut that event, or would you just carry it on for the delegate?
Everyone signs up. People love them, so it hasn't happened yet. We've maybe not sold out everyone, but we've had good showings in everyone for sure.
Yeah,
like I said, we're not trying to get 50 people in each one.
Right? No, yeah.
So that helps. Sorry about the distractions, by the way.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry. They're good kids. They didn't interfere at all. This is amazing, because just in 3 years, the way this Out of Chicago has grown. Now we're starting to evolve now, aren't we, with this Out of Chicago experience, which is now moving into other cities.
Yes.
On that.
Before we talk about the cities, let me tell you, we actually have 3 new things that we're going to do, and I kind of mentioned them, but 3 new things for 2016 in Chicago. One of them is because everyone wants that one-on-one experience. Everyone wants to sit down and, wow, this is one of my photography heroes, and actually get to talk directly with them. We're going to do one-on-one sessions. You have to sign up, and you got to pay a little extra because these are, we got to pay them as well.
Exactly right.
But we're doing one-on-one sessions where you could sign up and you could say, I'd like to work for an hour with Valerie Jardin, and I would just like to work with her. And you will communicate with the instructor, and you could say, hey, I want to go out and shoot for 60 minutes, or would you look over all of my images and do a critique, or let's just go have a coffee, and I'd like to ask you all kinds of questions about business or whatever. So we're going to set that up with any instructor that's interested in doing it, and almost all of them have said they're all for it. And when you go to register, you'll say, yeah, I'd like to also add on a one-on-one session with one of these people. So while we have all these people in Chicago, these great photographers, take advantage of that and get out and actually have, get a chance to talk one-on-one with some people. So that's one thing we have new. Another thing is we're doing what I told you before we started to record, which was a photo crawl. So
it sounds good, this one.
Instead of you going out with one instructor and hitting a bunch of different locations, we're going to send the instructors to the locations, and you walk all around the city of Chicago, go to the Beam, go to the Chicago Theater, you go to all the best places, and all these great instructors will be there giving you tips, shake their hand, say, hey, I'm so glad you're in Chicago, nice to meet you. And that's going to be Friday night after Rick Salmon gives his keynote. And the third thing we're going to do new this year is we're going to do panel discussions, and they're all going to be on different topics. So we're going to do like an hour. You could choose, hey, I'm going to do a photo walk or this class, or go to a panel discussion. So we've got one all about mirrorless cameras. We have the best people that know, everything about mirrorless cameras, whether it's Derek Story or Valerie or whoever, talking about mirrorless cameras. And you can ask questions of them, and we'll put them in ahead of time, and we'll have a moderator. Actually, I just talked with Frederick Van Johnson. I think he's going to help moderate the things. And then we'll have one on advanced post-processing. So like Jimmy McIntyre will be there, Matt Klaskowski, and then we'll have one on street photography. So all our best street photographers will be there. Ask all your questions that you want. And I think the one thing we missed the last couple of years was this camaraderie where you get like all these great street photographers in one room, and everyone can, just pick their brain.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, that sounds great. So give us a list of who's going to be there for 2016.
Oh my goodness, I would have to open this up. Well, hey, did you really
just a synopsis, just a sort of a brief.
No,
headline.
you asked. You're going to get it now.
You're going to get them all.
Yeah, Rick Salmon, Brian Peterson, Scott Bourne, Matt Klaskowski, Frederick Van Johnson, Jimmy McIntyre, Valerie Jardin, Tim Wallace from the UK, Mike Motes, Jim Harmer, Corwin Hebert, Marie Legnaud, Derek Story, Angie McMonagle, Satoki Nagata, Romeo Dersher, Rob Knight, Nick Ulivari, Levi Sims, Steve Brokaw, Nick Papagallo, Steve Nielsen, Michael Mraz, Mike and Jamie from Olympus, and Belmont, Ron Pepper, Wes Maggio, Jim Welninski, Ken Cascella, John Crouch, Dan Ablin, Molly Porter, Ryan Brown, Tony Reynez, and John Walrath. And that's everyone.
That's an amazing list of photographers there, and all that skill and knowledge that's coming out of it.
Yeah,
that's amazing how you got all those together as well.
And I think the best part about it, and part of what's made it successful, is that we have so many people from different genres and from different things. So like last year I would go to talk to people like, so I've heard you say this year you at least were in like a camera club in the UK, and we do the same thing. I'm in like the Chicago Botanic Garden camera club, and so I go there and I tell them, I'm like, we have Brian Peterson, he's going to be there, you can work one-on-one with him. And they're like, that's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. He's written all these books and Understanding Exposure, and they're like, that's great. And then I tell them, oh, we've also got Thomas Luther, he's coming from Switzerland. They go, never heard of him at all.
God, haven't heard of him. He's an amazing photographer. Amazing.
Right, and you tell someone else, and they say, Thomas Luther is coming to Chicago. This is great. And then they go, Brian Peterson, never heard of him.
Never heard of Brian Peterson. Yeah.
So
who is that Valerie Jardin? That's what I want to know. She pops up everywhere. Valerie Jardin. She's everywhere. Who is she?
Right. Yeah, we couldn't keep her away. We tried to say, no.
I've never heard of the lady. Every single day she pops up on my Facebook. What's all this about? I'll have to have a word with her. She's great. I love Valerie as well. Quite agree with you. Okay, come to the point of the show where a lot of my guests, they evade this question. And I think they evade this question because they are professional photographers and they don't want to put their upset any of their good friends. Now, you are an amateur photographer. And I'm sure you've got a favorite photographer. Who would that be, please, Chris?
Yeah, well, of course, I've got tons of them, but I think that my favorite one, and it's not just to do with the images, but it's also because I think he's a great guy, and that's Art Wolf. I love Art Wolf.
Wolf, yeah.
So, and maybe it's also because he came to Chicago and we helped him give one of his workshops, and I actually got to drive him to the airport. That was like my highlight of 2015 or whatever.
Fantastic.
So, and I just love him from his old, Travels to the Edge and all of that. Because to me, we haven't talked about this, but to me, photography is not necessarily, this sounds bad, and some people will be like, then I'm ignoring you completely, but photography is not always just about art. But to me, photography is about a great experience. And that's what we're trying to put on with the conferences. But with Art Wolf, he always looks like he's having a great time. He loves what he's doing. And when you see him on those shows, that's just what I love. And it makes me just want to go to all those places and hang out with him and just be out shooting. So he's been a big, he's probably my favorite photographer because of all those things.
Yeah, it's interesting you've gone for him because basically, correct me if I'm wrong here, majority of his work is nature, wildlife, but that's not really something, I know, just see a couple of images of the butterfly and the flower here on this particular page I just scrolled down to, but that's not really your genre of preference.
Yeah, well, you know what? Here's the thing, is that if I lived in, say, Montana or Colorado, I'd be doing landscape photography all day.
Yep.
And if I lived in Florida, I would be a bird photographer. There's no doubt about it. I think that people need to realize what they have. And I have one of the greatest cities in the entire world to shoot. And like I said, I'm usually only available at night. So I've been shooting night photography in the city, and I love it. But if I live somewhere else, I may switch to something completely different.
And I think you make a very, very good point there, because I mentioned this before with a previous guest of mine. I'm about 30 minutes from London, and I think London is the greatest city in the world.
Well, when we get out of London, then I'll agree with you then.
Exactly right. So the opportunities for me to sort of basically, like you, after I finish a day's work, I can jump on the train 30 minutes into London, have a little sort of 2-hour walkabout. Again, evening shots, especially if it's raining, puddles, all sorts of stuff come to mind. And then, of course, when the summer comes around, it's a totally different aspect. And it is because of where you're situated, where you can do your photography on a regular basis, that generally tends to point you in the direction of the photography which you enjoy doing most. Don't get me wrong, there are obviously some city livers that say, right, this weekend, from where I live, I'm going down to the south coast to take some landscape photography. There are obviously those guys, but generally...
But how many people do you know that are like, I live in, like, say, Florida, and they're like, I don't live near a big city, and so I don't shoot. I only shoot once or twice a year when I get out on vacation. And it's like, well, geez, look at all the great places you do have.
Oh, dear, it's amazing.
Else. Do that.
Having been fortunate to be done some business down in Miami a number of years ago, the architecture and all that Art Deco area down there, it's totally amazing, isn't it? Totally amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, we touched on it earlier on with regards to inspiration, and you picked me up on it, which is very kind of you. But who would you say? I'm going to switch this around a little bit. Who would you say has been your lifestyle inspiration?
now you're throwing out new questions. Lifestyle inspiration. Well, here, I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about, and that is that a huge inspiration for me has been David Duchemin and his business partner, Corwin Hebert. And we actually have Corwin coming and teaching at our event. And they've been huge because I love the creative aspect of photography. But when you listen to the podcasts that they've done, read their books, what I love that they talk about is they talk about being creative with your business. And that you can enjoy that. And I feel bad. I mean, you look through my Flickr stream, most of those pictures are from a while ago. In the last year or so, I've concentrated so much on trying to get these events together. But I've enjoyed it. I've loved every minute of doing that. But part of their talk really inspired me to say that I can make this a creative endeavor, and I can enjoy it, and I can put everything into it, and it's worked out great. So they've been a huge inspiration for me.
Oh, that's nice, actually. Yeah, David Duchemin. I had him on my show a couple of months ago.
I watched
such a nice guy, and so much that you can learn from him. And I think really, which caught my attention more than anything from that particular show. Again, we were looking at his Flickr page, and he used the iPhone. It just blew. I fell off my chair because basically I was expecting to talking about Fuji cameras, which we're going to touch on very shortly, double exposure, all sorts of stuff. We went, no, this is done on my iPhone using the Vesco app, and well, he just blow me away. Just totally blown away. But what a nice gentleman to talk to. And yes, I can understand exactly where he come from. He's an inspiration as well. Total inspiration. Let's talk briefly about Fuji, because you switched from Canon to the Fuji camera. You sold all your gear and moved into Fuji. Is that the XT1 or the XT10 that you ended up buying?
So I borrowed that XT10, but this now that I bought is the XT1. And I this is an 18 to 135, and then I have that other one, the 10 to 24. Those are the two lenses I use. And as far as a travel kit, I mean, it can't get much better than this. I probably need something that's a faster lens. I think I want to buy that new 35 millimeter f2 and put those three together. It's probably everything I'd ever need. But I mean, this is a 135. It's a 200 equivalent. And so, I mean, I go to, 10 to, so that's like whatever, 16. So 16 to 200 and two lenses is, if I'm using a tripod, it's everything I need. So
yeah, exactly.
I really like it. Mm-hmm.
I used the 18-135. I did a review on it. It wasn't exactly, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't exactly my favorite lens of what Fuji have created, because for a street walkabout type lens, it didn't feel right. I'm a firm lover of the 18-55, the camera, the lens which came with my original Fuji, the XE1, and I've got the 35-1.4, which is the just a superb lens. I did own the 27 Pancake for a short while, but I then bought myself the X100S, so there was no need for me to have the 27, so I got rid of that.
Yeah, that's my dilemma, is that when I was, and I still have an Olympus, I have an Olympus EM10, and I shot a 17 millimeter on there, which is like a 35 equivalent. There isn't, for this camera, a really good lens for that. There's a 23, but it's so big.
Yeah, it is.
I think I'm sure that's marketing on Fuji's part, that they're like, if you want that, you got to buy the X100 or one of those. So I don't know if I want to buy a whole new camera and have different batteries I got to charge up and everything. I wish they would make a smaller 23 millimeter lens. And
yeah, I think the 35 f2 may suit you, actually, because it is smaller than the 35 1.4, and that does look a very nice lens. I've heard some good reports and read some good comments about it as well.
Yeah, and
so
I used
that may suit you.
I walked all around the venue of Photo Plus, and I loved it. But I was on Valerie's show just the other day, and she's like, "Well, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter because it's not 23. I don't need it."
Yeah, exactly right. She just loves her X100T with that 23 mil lens. Right. But one thing, in actual fact, which I've done exactly the same thing, just prior to her making the announcement, I bought the WCL adapter, the converter, which fits on front of that 23 mil, which brings it down to around about, they say 16 to 18 mil, something like that, in terms of its angle of view. And that's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic. So if you're doing some
pick of the week when I was on the show with her, and so that's why she said, I liked going wider. Why would I want to go to 35? I don't need it. So.
Yeah, exactly. So you got the 18 and the 23 there in your pocket. Boom, and off you go. Who needs a camera bag?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I should have said that at the end.
Oh, yeah.
So all in all, basically, you haven't felt any difference with regards to switching out of your Canon gear into the Fujis.
Whoa! I didn't say that.
Oh, that was a question.
Okay, so I love this, and it's great for travel. But in the end, I think that it is I don't know how to put this.
Just say it.
There is something to having the higher megapixel. There is something to having the full frame. I mean, I shot that 6D for so long, and I am looking at getting like a Canon 5DSR to get the big megapixels. I mean, it's frustrating how many times I am just an amateur, but places will contact me downtown. We'd like to print this, and we'd like it to be 15 feet across. Should I be in meters? We'd like it to be 5 meters across, 4.5 meters across. But,
yeah, that's right.
But it's tough to do with the smaller sensor. And how many times I've sent them files and they say, our art department says this isn't going to be big enough or whatever. So there is something to that, and I am going to try that 5DSR. I'm going to be borrowing that for the beginning of the year here. So I don't know. I haven't completely decided. This is wonderful for travel, and it's great for street photography, but for some of the shots like I was showing you, and people want to blow them up huge, unless you're taking multiple images with this and stitching them together, it's not necessarily the best camera for that. So I love it. I love having it. But I may also look at doing that along with the Canon too.
It swings and roundabouts for you. The Canon 5D SR, I had a chat with Martin Bailey about, and he, in actual fact, was in the process of thinking about switching. Oh, he's thinking about getting the Sony A7, one of the A7 bodies with a lens.
Yep.
And he was just flooded with comments made on his Facebook page of why you're bothering this, and this, and this. And he said he was that close to getting one, and went into the shop and they said, "Oh, just got the Canon 5D SR in." He said, took one shot of it, and he said, "I ordered two." And he sold the other gear. Well, that is Martin's field. Martin's field is wildlife and nature photography, and he needs that full frame.
Right, and you know what? Yeah, and people say, well, this is not as good for sport, and it's not as good for some things. It's like, you shouldn't even try and use it for shooting sports.
No, not at all.
It's not even close. But the other big thing, and this kind of goes back to when we had Art Wolf in Chicago, someone asked him, how come you don't try and switch to something like this? And his is actually a better answer than all these other things about megapixels and all of that. His answer was, I can use my Canon camera without looking at it. I know where everything is. And I've been using this for 5-6 months now, and I'm still going, all right, there's some little tiny dial that's right here. That's the one. And I want to set my shutter speed. I got to do this. My old camera, I was just, there's something to be said for knowing your camera and sticking with
knowing your camera, which is so important. And a lot of people, I think, make the mistake, as we said before, buy a new camera to improve your photography. It's not that. It's being knowledgeable about the camera itself and what it can do for you, and being at one with the camera. See, I was a big Nikon user, huge Nikon user. And the reason I switched from Nikon is I just had too much gear. And it was
Nikon?
I like Nikon. I love Nikon.
I just kidding.
But you know, we call it Nikon, you call it Nikon. It's one of those things. No, not at all. And it was the fact that I had too much Nikon gear, to be quite honest with you. I tried to use the 1 series camera, which was just too small for my hand. It had the 1-inch sensor. Nothing wrong with the 1-inch sensor. I took made some great A3 prints from that 1-inch sensor. But when the Fujis started to really gear up, when the 100 and the X Pro one came to the market, and then obviously the X100S, that's what really tweaked my interest, and I made the switch. I sold all the Nikon gear and got into the Fujis. I've got the XT10 XE1, which is now converted to an infrared camera with a 720nm filter, and the X100S with the 18mm converter, and that's my gear. And I choose which camera I'm going to use when I go out. I don't take all three with me. I take one or the other.
Right.
Trying to keep it simple.
In your camera bag. Maybe you keep the other ones in your camera bag.
No, I do not use a camera bag. Don't twist my words. Although I have to admit, as I've admitted recently, the camera bag has come out off the shelf a few times.
Good for you. Okay, good. Can't totally go away. Yeah. And my thought right now is I may go back to doing Canon. And like I said, I really want that like 35mm. I may go back to Canon and get like an X100T, and the two of those together may be the perfect complement then.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. It's interesting. I had a chat with someone about it. Why have you got 3 versions of the Fuji camera? And I said, well, they all do a particular job. One is for the infrared. The XT10 is basically would be my travel camera if I'm going away on holiday, and my street camera is my X100S, and that's the gear that I have. You know, I don't take it all with me when I go out. That's pointless.
Makes sense to me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Chris, thank you so much for joining me. This has been lovely, listening all about the Out of Chicago and the great news of the new centers where you're going to be opening up. And my fingers are crossed that you guys do get it together, and maybe we can get something organized. And they're looking at other centers outside of the US. Do
you mind if I run down there real quick again? Because I don't know if I said it. Do you mind if I run down a couple of the things we got?
No, you carry on. Please carry on.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in Chicago, we have a winter conference actually this year, and that's going to be in February. It's February 20th in Chicago. We're also doing a portrait-only conference. We have Lindsay Adler and Tom Rouse and Nick Page and Jen Rosenbaum, a whole bunch of people coming. That's in April, like April 14th and 15th. But yeah, the big one is end of June. It's June 23rd through the 26th. And then we're doing New York in October 14th through the 17th, and Valerie's going to be there and a whole bunch of street photographers. That one's going to be great. But yeah, we're thinking about doing other things, maybe San Francisco, maybe a national park, like maybe Acadia National Park. And yeah, looking forward to 2017. And then, yeah, maybe out of London. So yeah, that's what's going on up here at least.
That's lovely. That's lovely. By the way, have you got time to teach while you're doing this? It sounds as though it's all crammed in there.
It's tough. We got the kids. I'm teaching physics. It's a lot to do. I mean, I have to thank my wife, Kristen. She's amazing, helping out with everything. I couldn't do it without her. So yeah, yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on. But I mean, really, and you hear this from so many like business people. Like, I don't play video games anymore. I don't want. I've never seen The Walking Dead. Like, I don't watch Netflix. Like, this is what I do, and that's it. So
that's lovely. That's lovely.
Yeah. But I hope people enjoy it. I got to say, I love your show. It's very similar to what we're trying to do. And I love how you say it, that you're bringing photographers, bring to you. And that's really like our idea with Out of Chicago, is bringing photographers together. So you're doing it in the show here, and we're trying to do it in person as well. So we're on the same page here. I love it.
No, thank you so much for those words. It's really kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Chris, thanks for joining me. It's been great. And I've got to tell you, we ticked over around about 15 live viewers here at one stage, which means it's probably around about 25 to 30 we're watching live, because it's never a true reflection of who is actual fact on Google Plus watching us. So for the viewers that have been with us, thank you so much for joining us. It's been absolutely fantastic. And enjoy the rest of the holidays. And yeah, go and spoil yourself New Year's Eve. Have a few beers and call that new year in, and we're going to have some good fun in the new year. Suffice to say, everyone, it's a happy new year from me to everyone out there. Chris, thank you so much for joining me. And yep, my little call sign, I'm definitely going to be doing this year. Leave your camera bag at home. Thank you so much for joining me. Cheers. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.